At dinner, my parents stood up and said, "We're giving Daisy the family home." I smiled, held up the mold photos, and asked, before I accept, should we discuss the $154,000 in debt? You know that feeling? That deep, gut-wrenching dread that tells you something is profoundly wrong, even when everyone around you is celebrating. That's the feeling that hit me cold and hard, the moment my dad announced his grand gift at Thanksgiving dinner. He thought he was giving me the family home, but what he was actually handing me was a ticking time bomb, a betrayal so deep it still makes my blood run cold. The grandfather clock in the hallway struck 2, a resonant boom that should have signaled the peak of our Thanksgiving feast. Instead, it was instantly swallowed by a sharp, insistent ting-ting-ting as my father tapped his wine glass, cutting through the chatter of 18 relatives. "Attention, everyone," he boomed, his voice thick with a self-satisfied pride. "If I could have your attention for a moment." He stood at the head of the table, looking every bit the benevolent patriarch. Cheeks flushed with wine, a crisp white shirt under his cashmere sweater, a smile plastered on that face that somehow never quite reached his eyes. He reached down and squeezed my shoulder. I was sitting to his right, stiff as a mannequin. "Mom and I have an announcement," he declared. "Shocking news, really. We've decided to hand over the inheritance rights of this house to Daisy." Then came the kicker. The family home finally belongs to the eldest sister, exactly as tradition dictates. The room erupted. My aunts gasped with delight, my uncles clapped loudly, shaking the entire table. Across from me, my younger sister, Lila, offered a tight, triumphant smile that looked more like a sneer. "Speech! Speech!" someone yelled. Suddenly, all eyes were on me. They expected tears of gratitude, a daughter overwhelmed by her parents' generosity. I forced the corners of my mouth up, but a cold chill ran down my spine instead of happiness. A gnawing sense of unease started creeping up from the pit of my stomach. They saw a gift, I saw a trap. The applause faded into a dull roar, and my mind snapped back. It really all began just 2 hours earlier, when the house was still quiet, before the secrets had been buried under noise and wine. I pulled my rental car into the driveway at 11 that morning. From the curb, the house looked perfect, fresh beige paint, gleaming white trim, new black shutters that still had that hardware store sheen. I sat there for a moment, just staring at the place I grew up. Something felt off. I couldn't quite name it, but it was that whisper in my gut, the kind of instinct I'd learned to trust after surviving 3 rounds of corporate layoffs. That little voice that said, "Get your resume updated 2 weeks before the axe fell." I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the front walk. The key was still under the ceramic frog, exactly where it had been since 1998. Some things never change. Except this house had changed. I smelled it the second I stepped inside. Paint. Fresh paint, the kind that hasn't fully cured yet. It coated the back of my throat, chemical and thick. Everything was pristine. The walls practically glowed. But underneath that sharp paint smell, there was something else. Something damp. Organic. Like wet cardboard left in a basement too long. "Daisy, you're early." Mom's voice rang out from the kitchen, breathless and urgent. I didn't answer right away. I was too busy running my hand along the wall in the hallway. The paint was so fresh it was almost tacky. Who repaints their entire house right before Thanksgiving? "Just a second, Mom." I called back. I hauled my suitcase upstairs to my old bedroom. It looked exactly the same floral bedspread from high school, same desk by the window. I left the suitcase by the closet and wandered back into the hallway, drawn by that strange smell. The second floor felt different, smaller somehow. I walked from room to room, running my fingers along door frames, peering into corners. In the bathroom, the grout around the tub looked new. In the hallway, there was a slight buckle in the hardwood that definitely wasn't there last Christmas. "Daisy, can you come down here, honey?" Mom's voice had an edge now, that particular tone she uses when she wants something and doesn't want to wait. I headed downstairs, taking my time. Mom, Evelyn, was in the kitchen, wearing her good apron with the embroidered turkeys. Papers were spread across the counter, a thick stack held together with a black binder clip, yellow sticky notes bristling from the edges like porcupine quills. "There you are," she said, sliding the papers toward me without preamble. I need you to sign these real quick. The lawyer already handled everything. You just need to put your signature on the sticky notes. See? I marked them all for you. I looked down at the documents. The top page was dense with legal text, single-spaced, font so small it blurred into gray. What is this? I asked. The house transfer, honey. Your father wants to announce it at dinner. You know how he loves his big moments. She was already turning back to the stove. We're giving you the house. Isn't that wonderful? The family home, passed down to the eldest daughter, just like tradition says. For a split second, a wave of emotion washed over me. Validation. All my life, I had craved this. I had watched them spoil Lila, watched them hand her everything while I worked for every scrap. And now? Now, they were choosing me. I uncapped the pen. I wanted to sign. I wanted to please them, to make this holiday perfect. The tip of the pen hovered over the first yellow tab. But then I stopped. I leaned in, squinting at the dense block of legal text beneath the sticky note. The text is too small, Mom, I said, frowning. I left my glasses in the reading room when I popped in to check the printer earlier. I grabbed the thick file and stood up. I'm going up to get my glasses, I said, my voice casual. I need to print my boarding pass for tomorrow morning's flight anyway. I'll be down in 5 minutes. Mom moved to block my path, her hand reaching out as if to take the papers back. Why don't you go get your glasses and come back down, she said, her smile tight. I'll help you go through it. It'll be faster that way. But I was already moving. I sidestepped her and started up the stairs, clutching the documents to my chest. Just watch the turkey for me, Mom. I called back over my shoulder. I'll be done in a second. I didn't wait for an answer. I walked calmly until I turned the corner of the landing. Then I moved faster. I slipped into the room, my heart still thumping from the close call with Mom. My reading glasses were right where I left them, sitting on the small table next to Dad's old laser printer. I picked them up and slid them onto my nose. The world sharpened instantly. I set the heavy stack of documents, the gift Mom was so desperate for me to sign, down on the mahogany desk. First things first, I muttered. I woke up the desktop computer, pulled up my flight confirmation, and hit print. If things went south, I needed that boarding pass ready for a dawn escape. The printer whirred to life. It pulled a sheet of paper, made a sickening crinkle crunch sound, and ground to a halt. Silence. Then, an angry red light started blinking. Paper jam. Great, I sighed. Just what I needed. I reached over, popped open the front panel, and pulled out the paper tray to clear the blockage. A crumpled ball of paper came out with the tray, stuck deep in the rollers. I pulled it free carefully and smoothed it out on the desk, right next to the legal papers. It was a scrap sheet used on one side. But the backside. The backside was a printed email. From First National Bank. Subject: reference denied. Reason: debt-to-income ratio too high. Cosigner required. My blood ran cold. Why would they be generously gifting me a house when the bank had just refused to lend them money on it? I slipped the reading glasses back on and lifted the first yellow sticky note. The words beneath it came into sharp focus. Loan assumption agreement. Not a deed. Not a transfer. Not a gift. My fingers went numb. I flipped to the next page, scanning the dense paragraphs. The assuming party, Daisy Cooper, agrees to assume full responsibility for the outstanding mortgage debt in the amount of $154,000. Effective immediately upon execution of this agreement, $154,000. They were not giving me a house. They were giving me their debt. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. My parents were not generous benefactors. They were looking for a scapegoat to save their credit score. The bank email crumpled in my other hand suddenly made perfect sense. They got denied for refinancing because their debt ratio was too high. So they needed someone with good credit. Someone stupid enough to sign without reading. Me. I flipped through more pages, my hands shaking now. There was a rider attached to the loan assumption, referencing an emergency repair disbursement that was already approved and distributed 3 weeks ago. $25,000 released directly to the homeowners for critical structural repairs. I looked up at the freshly painted walls of the den. At the new grout in the bathroom down the hall. At the suspiciously pristine baseboards. Where did that money go? I whispered. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Mom. Turkey's almost ready. Come down soon? I did not answer. Instead, I grabbed my phone and the legal documents and headed for the back door. I needed air. I needed space to think. Without Mom's voice drilling into my skull. The November cold hit my face like a slap. I welcomed it. I walked down the back steps, past the small garden where Lila and I used to play dolls when we were little. Before she learned that being helpless got her more than being capable ever could. I kept walking. My feet knew where they were going before my brain caught up. The garage. The detached two-car garage at the back of the property. The side door was unlocked. It always was. I stepped inside, and the familiar smell of motor oil and old cardboard wrapped around me like a blanket. For a second, I was 10 years old again, hiding from my sister's tantrums in the cool shadows. Dad's ancient Buick was parked in its usual spot, Mom's sedan next to it. Lila's little hatchback was there too, which meant she drove separately even though she lives 20 minutes away. Then my eyes landed on something in the far corner. Something large, covered by a silver tarp. I moved toward it slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. The tarp was secured with bungee cords. I unhooked them one by one, and the fabric slid to the concrete floor with a heavy whoosh. A recreational vehicle. Brand new, judging by the shine on the chrome fixtures. It was enormous. The kind with a slide-out and a full kitchen. The kind that costs more than most people's annual salary. I stood there, staring at it. My brain was trying to process what I was seeing, but it felt like trying to add numbers underwater. I reached for the driver's side door. It was unlocked. I climbed inside. The interior smelled like new leather and plastic. Everything was pristine. The odometer read 87 miles. I popped open the glove compartment, my hands moving on autopilot now. A folder. Inside, a bill of sale from Winnebago of Rockford. Purchase price, $87,000. Date of sale, 3 days ago. Purchaser, Randall Cooper. I closed the folder carefully and set it back in the glove box. My hands were not shaking anymore. They were perfectly steady. I climbed out of the RV and stood next to it, staring at the garage wall. The paint was peeling near the foundation. Dark streaks ran down from the ceiling. The dampness I smelled in the house was stronger here. Concentrated. I walked back toward the main house, my mind clicking through the pieces like a spreadsheet sorting itself. The fresh paint smell. The new grout. The buckling floorboards. I circled around to the basement entrance on the side of the house. The door was never locked. I pulled it open and descended the concrete steps. The basement was dim. I flipped the light switch. A single bulb flickered to life overhead. The walls down here were painted, too. Same fresh beige as upstairs. But here, in the dampness, the paint was already starting to bubble. I walked to the far wall and scratched at one of the bubbles with my fingernail. The paint flaked away easily. Underneath, the drywall was black. Not dirty black. Not water-stained black. Mold. Toxic black mold, spreading in organic patterns like something alive. They borrowed $25,000 to fix the house. They spent $87,000 on a luxury RV instead. Then they painted over the rot and tried to trick me into signing my name to the crime scene. I heard footsteps above me. Someone was in the kitchen. I backed away from the wall and climbed the stairs. My cousin Marcus was coming out of the bathroom when I emerged. He stopped when he saw me, his face creasing with concern. Daisy? You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I forced my mouth into something resembling a smile. I'm fine. Just needed some air. He didn't look convinced, but he nodded and headed back toward the dining room where I could hear the relatives gathering. I gripped my phone tighter. I had a plan now. I scrubbed the grime off my hands in the powder room, took a deep breath to steady my shaking fingers, and walked back into the dining room. Now, during dinner, the turkey sat golden in the center of the table. Wine glasses were half full. My cousin Rachel was telling some story about her kid's soccer game, waving her fork around for emphasis. Lila was laughing at something Uncle Mike had just said, her hand draped casually over her wine glass. Nobody knew yet. They thought this was just another Cooper family Thanksgiving. I slid into my seat to Dad's right. Mom caught my eye from across the table and gave me a tight smile. I didn't return it. I set my phone face down, on the table beside my plate. Then I placed the folded bank email next to it, the paper crisp and damning. Dad cleared his throat and stood, tapping his wine glass again. The room quieted. "I want to finish what I started before," he said, beaming down at me, his hand finding my shoulder again. That same proud squeeze. As I was saying, we're giving the house to Daisy. But, here it came. Since Daisy already has that big place in Denver, we think it's only fair to reward Lila a little bit too. Balance things out, you know. Mom reached into her purse beside her chair. She pulled out a velvet box, navy blue with gold hinges. Even from here, I could tell it was expensive. She slid it across the table to Lila with a flourish. Lila opened it slowly, her eyes widening with theatrical delight. Inside was a diamond necklace and matching earrings, the stones catching the light from the chandelier above. They sparkled like little drops of ice. "Oh my God," Lila breathed. She lifted the necklace out, letting it dangle from her fingers. "Mom, Dad, this is too much." $11,000 worth, Dad said proudly. "You deserve it, sweetheart." The table erupted again. Aunts cooed over the jewelry. Uncle Steve whistled low. Rachel leaned over to get a better look. Lila met my eyes across the table, and her smile shifted. It became something sharper, more satisfied. She stood and walked around to my side, draping the necklace across her collarbone. "Thanks, big sis," she said sweetly, projecting her voice so everyone could hear, for shouldering the family legacy. "I know the house is a huge responsibility, but somebody has to do it, right?" The subtext was clear to me, even if nobody else caught it. I get the debt, she gets the diamonds. I get the rotting structure, she gets the liquid assets. Dad raised his glass. "To Daisy." And to family tradition. 18 people reached for their glasses. The sound of crystal clinking filled the room. I didn't move. My glass stayed on the table untouched. Instead, I picked up my phone and the folded paper, holding them both in my hands. The room slowly realized I hadn't joined the toast. Glasses hovered in midair. Confused glances darted around the table. "Daisy?" Mom's voice was careful. "Aren't you going to toast?" I looked at my father. He was still standing, his glass extended toward me, his expression frozen somewhere between pride and confusion. "The RV in the garage is nice, Dad," I said. My voice came out calm, almost conversational. "Does it run on gas or on the betrayal of your own daughter?" The silence was instant and total. You could have heard a pin drop on the hardwood. Dad's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. I unlocked my phone and opened the photo gallery. I held it up, angling the screen so the people nearest me could see. The image showed the gleaming RV under the tarp, chrome fixtures catching the flash from my camera. I slowly panned the phone around the table, turning my body so everyone got a clear view. "You two plan to go traveling in this after I sign the debt papers, right?" I kept my voice level factual. $87,000. Purchased 3 days ago. "Daisy, I don't know what Dad started, but I wasn't done." I swiped to the next photo. The wall in the garage, paint scraped away to reveal the blooming darkness underneath. Black mold. Spreading like cancer through the infrastructure of this house. And using cheap paint to cover up toxic black mold. I continued, still panning the phone around. Aunt Linda gasped. Uncle Steve leaned back in his chair. "Trick me into signing for this rotting carcass of a house." Mom's face had gone white. "You had no right to go through our things." I had every right not to sign away my financial future. I set the phone down and picked up the folded paper, opening it with deliberate care. The bank logo was visible at the top. I held it up like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "The bank denied the refinance," I read aloud. "Debt-to-income ratio too high. Cosigner required." I lowered the paper and looked directly at Dad. "You need me to sign a loan assumption, not accept a gift." $154,000 of debt transferred straight to my name. Lila stood abruptly, her chair scraping loud against the floor. "Big sis, surely there's a misunderstanding. Maybe we should talk about this privately." I turned to her, and whatever she saw in my face made her stop mid-sentence. "Shut your mouth." The words came out cold and flat. "Your car is parked right next to that RV. You knew everything." Lila's mouth opened, then closed. She sank back into her chair, the diamond necklace suddenly looking obscene against her throat. Uncle Steve was the first to break the silence. "Randall, is this true? Were you trying to dump your debt on Daisy?" "It's not like that," Dad said, but his voice had lost all its authority. "We were going to help her with the payments." "With what money?" I asked. "The money you spent on a luxury RV? Or maybe with the $11,000 you just gave Lila?" Aunt Linda turned to Mom. "Evelyn, you painted over black mold? That's illegal. That's fraud." The table erupted. Everyone was talking at once, voices rising in shock and anger. Rachel stared at my parents like she'd never seen them before. Uncle Mike was shaking his head in disgust. The cousins were whispering frantically to each other. "Oh my God," Aunt Linda said again, louder this time. "That is fraud." Mom tried to speak, but the table had turned. The relatives who were applauding 10 minutes ago were now condemning, criticizing, supporting me. I stood up, grabbing my handbag from the back of my chair. The room went quiet again, all eyes on me. "Good luck to the family with the bank," I said. I slung my bag over my shoulder and looked one last time at my parents. Dad's face was red, Mom's eyes were shining with what might have been tears or might have been rage. Lila was staring at the diamonds in her lap like they might bite her. I turned and walked toward the front door. Nobody stopped me. Behind me, the noise started up again. Louder now, angry voices demanding explanations. The sound of chairs scraping. Someone was crying. I grabbed my suitcase from the foyer where I'd left it that morning. The house still smelled like paint and lies. I walked out the front door without looking back, pulling it shut behind me on the chaos inside. My rental car was right where I'd parked it. I threw my bag in the back seat and slid behind the wheel. My hands were steady on the key. The engine started on the first try. I had a flight to Denver in hours, but I thought I'd head to the airport now. I reached the airport terminal at 10:47 p.m. The place was nearly empty, just a handful of tired travelers slumped in plastic chairs and one janitor pushing a mop across the tile floor. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making everything look washed out and unreal. I headed straight to the ticket counter. The agent behind the desk was maybe 25, wearing too much eyeliner and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. I showed her my ticket and boarding pass and headed toward the security checkpoint, then changed my mind. Too early. They wouldn't let me through for another 6 hours. Instead, I found a bench near the windows and settled in to wait. I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Lila. I silenced it and shoved it back in my pocket. They wouldn't let this go. I knew them too well. They were sitting in that house right now, panicking. 18 relatives just witnessed their perfect scam fall apart. The whispers had already started. Aunts and uncles were probably comparing notes, remembering all the little inconsistencies they'd overlooked before. I leaned my head back against the wall and closed my eyes. I was exhausted, but sleep wouldn't come. Every time I started to drift, I saw Dad's face when I asked about the RV. That split second before he recovered, when his mouth opened and nothing came out. My phone buzzed. Once, twice, a dozen times in rapid succession. I pulled it out. The family group chat was exploding. I scrolled through without opening any of the messages. Most were from various aunts and uncles, asking if I was okay, where I was. A few were defending Mom and Dad, saying there must be some misunderstanding. Then I saw the preview of a message from Lila. Just the first few words showed up on my lock screen. "Are you happy? Dad just had a..." My stomach dropped. I opened the message thread. "Are you happy? Dad just had a heart attack and collapsed. The ambulance is coming. If anything happens to Dad, you are a murderer." The message was sent 4 minutes ago. Already, the group chat was blowing up with panicked responses. Aunt Linda was asking which hospital. Uncle Frank said he was getting in his car right now. I stared at the screen. My hands were completely steady. A heart attack. How convenient. How perfectly timed. I thought about the last time I saw Dad, maybe 40 minutes ago. Standing at that dinner table, red-faced and furious, but not clutching his chest, not short of breath, just angry that his golden plan had imploded. I opened a new browser window on my phone and typed Rockford Memorial Hospital into the search bar. It was the closest hospital to their house, maybe 8 minutes by ambulance. I tapped the phone number. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. Rockford Memorial, Emergency Department. The voice was calm, professional. A woman, probably in her 40s based on the timbre. "Hi," I said, keeping my voice level. "I'm calling to check on a patient who should have just been brought in by ambulance. Randall Cooper. Heart attack." There was a pause. I heard typing. "Can you spell the last name?" "Copr." More typing. The seconds stretched out. My pulse thudded in my ears, but I kept my breathing even. "I'm not showing any patient by that name admitted tonight," the nurse said finally. "Are you sure he came to this location? I just got a call saying he was being transferred here." "Ma'am, I've checked our system. No Randall Cooper has been admitted or treated in our emergency department this evening." I closed my eyes. There it was. The truth, clean and simple as a knife. "Thank you," I said. "That's all I needed to know." I hung up before she could respond. My hands moved automatically. I opened my phone's recent calls, took a screenshot showing the hospital's number and the timestamp. Then I opened the family group chat. 43 new messages. Everyone was in full panic mode now. Mom had chimed in, her message dripping with drama. "Please pray for Randall. Daisy, if you have any decency left, come home now." I typed quickly, attaching the screenshot. "The hospital says there is no one named Randall admitted. Did Dad collapse onto a pile of cash or onto the leather seats of that RV, Lila?" I hit send. Then I scrolled up to the top of the group chat, tapped the settings icon, and selected Leave Group. The confirmation box popped up. "Are you sure you want to leave, Cooper family?" I tapped Leave without hesitation. The chat disappeared from my screen. My phone immediately started buzzing with individual texts. "Mom, Lila, Aunt Linda, Uncle Frank." I watched the notifications pile up on my lock screen, but I didn't open any of them. Instead, I opened my contact list. I scrolled to Mom first, tapped it. Select Block this caller, confirm. Then Lila, block. Dad's number, block. I went through systematically, blocking every number that had sent me a message in the last 10 minutes. When I was done, my phone finally went quiet. I leaned back and looked out the window. The tarmac was dark except for the occasional sweep of a security vehicle's headlights. A plane took off in the distance, red lights blinking as it climbed into the black sky. My phone vibrated one last time. A text from my cousin, the one who'd asked if I was okay when I came up from the basement earlier, the one who'd always been straight with me. "Just saw your hospital screenshot in the chat before you left. Holy shit. They're scrambling now. Half the family is furious at your parents. The other half is pretending they need to hear both sides. But I believe you. Stay safe." I typed back quickly. "Thanks. Tell anyone who asks, I'm fine. I'm safe. And I'm done." I didn't wait for a response. I powered down my phone completely and slid it into my bag. The airport was quiet again. Just the hum of the lights and the distant sound of that janitor's mop. I closed my eyes and, for the first time in hours, I felt something that wasn't anger or disgust. Peace. Cold and clean as winter air. They'd played their last card. The fake emergency. The guilt trip designed to drag me back into their web. And I killed it with a single phone call. No screaming. No crying. Just facts. I pulled my jacket tighter and settled in to wait for dawn. 3 days after Thanksgiving, my phone buzzed while I was at my desk in Denver, staring at spreadsheets that refused to balance. It was a text from my cousin Rachel, one of the few relatives who didn't side with my parents at dinner. "You need to see this." The screenshot loaded slowly. Mom's Facebook page. A long post, public enough to be seen by every busybody in Rockford. "I'm heartbroken to share that my eldest daughter is suffering from severe mental health issues. The stress from her job has made her paranoid and delusional. She's fabricating stories about RVs and black mold that simply don't exist. We're praying for her recovery. Please keep our family in your thoughts during this difficult time." Below it, Lila's comment, She's just jealous because I got the necklace. I read it twice. Then I set the phone down and stared at the wall of my apartment. The clean, mold-free wall that I pay for with money I actually earned. They were trying to gaslight me publicly. I picked up the phone again and opened my photos. The RV under the tarp, gleaming chrome, and that stupid price tag, visible in the bill of sale. The wall in the basement, scraped paint revealing black rot underneath. The bank email, still folded in my carry-on from the flight home. I texted Rachel back. Can you do me a favor? Anything. I attached 3 files, the bank rejection email, the RV bill of sale with Dad's signature and the $87,000 price tag, and close-up photos of the black mold, timestamp visible, showing Thanksgiving Day at 1:47 p.m. Feel free to correct the truth for me, I typed. Rachel's response was immediate. Oh, this is going to be good. I set the phone face down and went back to my spreadsheets. I didn't need to watch. I knew exactly what was happening. Rachel was probably already typing furiously in Mom's comment section, uploading evidence, tagging relatives who were at that dinner table. Let them see the receipts. My phone started buzzing nonstop around dinner time. Texts from aunts and uncles I hadn't heard from in years. Is this real? Your mother lied? That poor girl. I didn't answer any of them. I ordered Thai food and watched a documentary about financial fraud. The irony wasn't lost on me. 1 week after Thanksgiving, a new email arrived. The sender was listed as concerned party, but the writing style screamed Lila. She never could hide her voice, even when she tried. To Ms. Daisy Cooper. We demand immediate payment of $50,000 for the following offenses: invasion of privacy, unauthorized entry into private garage, theft of proprietary documents, removal of vehicle paperwork, and public defamation. Distribution of private family matters. If you do not return to Rockford within 72 hours to sign the outstanding house documents and rectify this situation, we will pursue full legal action in civil court. Our attorney is prepared to file. I read it 3 times. Then I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. Their attorney. They didn't have an attorney. They couldn't even afford their payments. And they were threatening to sue me? The bank denied them a refinance because their debt-to-income ratio was too high. That meant they were drowning. The RV payment alone would be killing them. I opened a reply. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could write paragraphs. I could detail exactly how stupid this threat was, how transparent their desperation had become. Instead, I typed 1 line, great. Sue me. I will send all evidence of this mortgage fraud to the court and send it to the IRS as well. I'm waiting for the subpoena. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I forwarded the entire email chain to my own attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia, who helped me negotiate my severance package 2 years ago. I attached the photos, the bank email, and the RV bill of sale. For your information, I wrote, in case this escalates. Her response came within an hour. If they're dumb enough to actually file, we'll counterclaim for attempted fraud. But my guess? You'll never hear from them again. People who make threats like this are usually broke and bluffing. She was right. Silence. Absolute, perfect silence. No more Facebook posts. No more threatening emails. No more guilt-inducing text messages about how I was destroying the family. I checked Mom's Facebook once, out of morbid curiosity. The post about my mental health issues had been deleted. The comment section where Rachel dumped all my evidence was gone too. The whole thing scrubbed clean, like it never happened. But the internet never forgets. I'm sure someone somewhere took screenshots. 2 months later, Rachel texted me again. This time, there was no screenshot. Just a message. The bank foreclosed. Your parents have 30 days to vacate. I stared at that text for a long time. I should feel something. Guilt, maybe. Satisfaction, something. Instead, I just felt tired. What about the RV? I typed back. Repossessed last week. Lila's car too, apparently. She co-signed something she shouldn't have. Of course she did. Golden child. Dragged down by the same parents who built her pedestal. They're moving into an apartment on the south side, Rachel continued. Your mom tried to borrow money from half the family. No one's biting. I set the phone down, walked to my kitchen, poured a glass of water from the tap, and looked out the window at the Denver skyline. The mountains were visible today, sharp and clear against a blue sky. My apartment is small. 1 bedroom, barely 700 square feet. But it's mine. The walls are clean. The air doesn't smell like paint or rot. My credit score is intact. My bank account is growing, slowly but steadily. I didn't inherit a house. I didn't get a diamond necklace worth $11,000. But I'm free. My phone buzzed one more time. A new number I didn't recognize. This is Mom. The landlord is evicting us. We need help. Please. I read it twice. Then I tap the number and select Block Contact. The phone goes quiet. I finish my water and go back to my spreadsheets. There's work to do, and I'm done carrying other people's debts. For months later, I sit at my kitchen table in Denver, watching steam curl off my tea. The morning light catches the edge of my mug, and beyond the window, the city spreads out in orderly blocks of possibility. No mansion. No inherited property. Just this 1-bedroom apartment I pay for with money I earned, and that makes it worth more than any crumbling house in Rockford ever could. The couch I picked out myself. The bookshelf I assembled without asking for help. The air smells clean, not like paint covering rot. I pay my bills on time. My credit score climbed 60 points since Thanksgiving. At night, I sleep through till morning without jolting awake, wondering what fresh disaster someone will try to drag me into. My laptop chimes with an email notification. I glance at the subject line and feel something close to joy crack through my chest. Congratulations on your promotion and raise. I open it slowly, reading each line twice to make sure it's real. Senior Data Analyst to Lead Analytics Manager. A 20% salary increase, effective immediately. My supervisor wrote a paragraph about my exceptional analytical rigor and unshakable composure under pressure. If she only knew where I'd practiced those skills. I close the laptop and pull up a new browser tab, typing in the search bar before I can second-guess myself. Flights to Iceland. I've wanted to see the Northern Lights since I was 16, back when I was still saving every paycheck to help the family. There was always something. Dad's car needed new tires. Mom's dental work. Lila's rent. Again and again and again. Not anymore. The booking page loads. I select a window seat on a flight leaving in 6 weeks. My finger hovers over the Confirm Purchase button for only a second before I click it. Trip confirmation. Boarding pass sent to email. A week in Reykjavik. Solo. With nobody asking me for a single thing. My phone buzzes again. Different number this time. I recognize the area code. Rockford. Daisy. It's Lila. I know you blocked Mom, but please just hear me out. I was wrong. I see that now. They've been blaming me for everything since the foreclosure. Dad says it's my fault you exposed them. Mom won't even speak to me half the time. I'm sorry for what I did. Can we talk? Just once? I want to explain. I read the message 3 times. There's a small, distant part of me that remembers the sister I had before the diamond necklace. Before she parked her car next to the RV and said nothing. Before she called me a liar in front of 18 relatives. I text back. Fine. 1 coffee. Next Tuesday. Java House on Maple. 30 minutes. That's it. I'm not doing this for her. I'm doing it so I can look at her across the table, say what needs saying, and then walk away knowing I gave her the chance she never gave me. But that's next week. Today, I have a reservation to celebrate. I grab my coat and head out the door, locking it behind me. The elevator hums as it descends, and I catch my reflection in the polished steel doors. Same thick-rimmed glasses. Same serious expression. But my shoulders sit differently now. Looser. Lighter. Outside, the Denver cold bites at my cheeks, but the sky is brilliant blue. I walk toward the restaurant district, hands in my pockets, thinking about geysers and glaciers and a trip I'm taking just because I want to. Somewhere in Rockford, my parents are scrambling. The bank took the house. The RV got repossessed. Their credit is scorched earth. I didn't destroy the family. The truth did, and I'm finally free.